Good morning, Alpha. Nice to be with some people who fly more than I do. I go to work from Rochester on Southwest and go back home and knowing that I'm going to be okay because most of you pilots, all of you, so well trained and knowing exactly what you need to do. But there were some who were not that well equipped. So I want to tell you a story. But first, it's an honor to speak to you this morning. When I first got to the Congress, one of the first group of people to support me was ALPA, so I've always had a very warm spot in my heart for you. But as you know, we all fly on a weekly basis to get here, and we count on you. First, I want to thank the Captain Tim Canal. Tim came to the conference we had. It was wonderful to have him there. He's a good man. He's a strong leader. And I am proud to stand with him to defend the safe skies. Now, this forum is an incredible opportunity to bring together the experts to better understand the steps that we need to take to make the skies safer for all of us. We start with understanding that you want safety in the air as well. Those of you who need to go home every night the same way we do. This is being held at a time when great important strides have been taken for airline safety, but they are under assault, those wonderful rules. These rules were born from a tragedy, and that's what I want to talk to you about. 8 years ago, Western New York was home to one of the worst plane accidents in the recent U.S. history. Just miles from Buffalo, actually, they could see the runway from the plane. Colgan Air Flight 3407 crashed into a home on Long Street in Clarence, New York. The crash took the lives of 50 people, including the pilot and co-pilot, and one man who lived in Clarence. The plane landed on his house. Now, among the victims was an expert in the Rwandan genocide. Knew more about it than anybody else. There were two great musicians en route to a concert with the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. The world's greatest anthropologist was said to be on that plane. The co-founder of the Voices of September 11th, who had lost her husband in the attack on the World Trade Center, was on that plane. Every life lost that night was a tragedy. But if there was ever a preventable crash, that was it. The pilot and the co-pilot were totally inexperienced, never been in that kind of weather. February in New York is not a place people go for vacation. The pilot had failed almost all the tests he had taken outright to be able to fly in that kind of weather, and I don't think the co-pilot had ever even attempted it. Their salary was about $17,500. So they couldn't afford on long hauls to get a hotel room to sleep in. They slept on the floor, crashed with friends, slept in lounges. They must have been dead for sleep in addition to everything else. And it was a pretty bad system with Colgan. They often forced their regional pilots to work 4 or 5 days a week, 15-hour days. Now, the pilots hadn't been trained to fly or any experience, as I said before, with what they ran into. But the families of the persons on Flight 3407 have done things that I had never seen in my life or never thought to be possible. Ever since that awful time, and I was congressperson then, because due to the vagaries of the way New York portioned out districts to its members in Congress, my district was about 5 miles wide and 100 miles long. I had most of Great Lakes and the east side of Buffalo. So we were over there as quickly as we could be and stayed up with everybody for a week or more. But we got to know them like family. There wasn't a single time that something was coming up about airline safety that they didn't all come down en masse. They paid their own way, which was considerable. They paid for their lodging, and they came and came and came. They were here almost, we seriously got to know them like our best friends. I have never known any group of people that used their own grief to benefit the lives of other people. And they were so dedicated that nobody in the country would have to go through what they had gone through and what they still go through, because death is not something you get over. But they have been here, and the support of ALPA has been tremendous in that issue. So again and again, as I say, they travel down. We worked in a bipartisan way. This is the Rochester Syndrome. If anybody from upstate New York understands that. Let me have a drink of water here. Captain Sullenberger became one of our favorites who stayed with us too and worked on the legislation. So we made sure that every pilot, whether regional or commercial, is well-trained, well-rested. And as a result, we haven't seen a single regional crash since that time. Let me say that no lives have been lost since we put the safety protections in place. And I don't see it as a coincidence. Now, as a member of Congress for a good number of years, I know that when something is really working well, you try to kill it. You've seen that syndrome. And so we are very concerned right now that Senator Thune is trying very much to take away the 1,500 hours of training that we believe are so important for the pilots. It's inconceivable to me that despite this success in keeping people safe, they are after these things, and we are working very hard. And your Captain Knoll was there with us, vowing to make sure that none of us would let it happen, that they would be successful in taking away those regulations. And so we are going to make certain that we do that. But if we water down that rule, if we water down any part of that rule, it's an insult to every pilot who takes and us through the air. Did I do that? I thought maybe there was some kind of signal to tell me that I'm through. So instead of trying to cut corners by allowing pilots in the cockpit with less training, we think the regional airline should attract the best pilots and pay them a decent wage. It's no secret that we live in partisan times. I'm proud that the standards have never been a part of partisanship. All my colleagues from across western New York, both Republican and Democrat, are standing steadfast with ALPA and the 3407 families over the years in spite of these standards. We stood together to call for the standards and then to celebrate the passage, and now we're fighting to make sure that they stay in place. But let me talk to you about Sumner West, who spoke at our latest meeting. Summer is 10 years old. She talked about the memories that she had of her father. He died 8 years ago. The most important thing that stands out in her mind that she can recall about him was that they always went out for breakfast, she and her father, on Saturday morning to let her mother sleep. And she said to the press that day, "I was robbed of my life with Daddy, and he was robbed of me. Please don't do that to your kids." So we learned from Summer. She said, "Teach us the right ways and keep the skies safe." She implored us to make her father proud by keeping the standards in place. They are an example of good that can come out of tragedy when people join together to do what is right, but it shouldn't take a tragedy to keep people safe. And there's so much done to protect and strengthen the airline industry standards, but thorough training is at the bottom of it all. So I hope all of you will develop the strategies, and I know you will, and this is the first time I've had in 20 years, I think, to speak to ALPA and to thank you for what you do. I will thank you. Those of us who get to work in an airplane really understand exactly what sacrifices that you have made to train and to keep your skills and to make sure that we are safe, and you are too, because we are aware that you too want to get home for supper. Thank you so very much for letting me come this morning and tell you this story. We've really got a fight on our hands, but that's all right. We're good fighters. They don't call me Slaughter for nothing. Thank you very much.